Welcome to But Enough About Me, a podcast about other people. My name is Tyler Andrews. I'm a Nashville-based photographer, husband, and father. I'm trying to collect the stories of everyone around me, whether we're best friends or total strangers. I want to know what made you the person you are today. Welcome back to the show, guys. I'm so excited to share this episode with you. I know I say that before all of them, and it's true. But this one in particular, I've been looking forward to for a long time for a number of reasons. First of all, this is the season finale. This is it. This is the last one you're going to get for a little bit. And I'm sorry about that, but I need a break. I'll talk about all of that later. The other reason I'm really excited about this episode, I saved this interview for the season finale because I love it and I love my guest so much. I met my guest 17 years ago. Oh my gosh, 17 years ago, when we both worked for Mr. Dave Ramsey. I was introduced to him. I remember exactly where I was standing. I remember exactly what he was wearing. I remember the conversation. I don't know how many of you can remember the first time you met someone. And I'm not talking about like a celebrity or something like that. You'll remember that. But somebody that is just your coworker, one of 200. I remember crystal clear the very first time I met my guest today. He makes that kind of impression. My guest today is a husband and a financial planner. He serves actively with the Boy Scouts and Tres Dias and other church organizations. He has excellent taste in bourbon and terrible taste in scotch, and he is a good man. He is my financial advisor. He works with Bound Brook Advisors. You can get in touch with them at boundbrookadvisors.com. Guys, you won't find anybody better to talk with money about. I have sent so many of my friends and family to go talk to them, and you'll hear it in this interview. This is a man so filled with character and integrity that I literally trust him implicitly. It is such an honor to share this story with you guys. You'll hear some rain in the interview. That happened, the interview happened back in January, and you're hearing thunder now because there's another storm today. Please forgive that. Also, it's a longer episode, but you know what? This is my finale, so deal with it. It's going to be as long as I want it to be. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. My very good friend, Mr. John Richardson. Okay, all right. Yeah. It makes me feel better.
McKellen.
John, welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to know your story. When were you born?
So, I was born February 2nd, 1978, Groundhog's Day.
Did he see his shadow or not?
You know, at that age, I don't recall if I did or did not. I don't know. It's not in my baby book.
We should look it up.
Should look it up, yeah. I know it was snowing here in Nashville. I was born at Baptist Hospital, and the streets were covered with snow. I do know that. And then 2 days later, it was my mom's birthday, so I was her birthday present that year.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. As far as my name, that's a cool story I can share with you.
You can tell me whatever you want, man. Yeah. Tell me about your name, John.
So my full name is John Daniel Richardson.
Okay.
And my mom and dad are originally from Chicago. And dad worked for a company called Data General.
Okay.
And moved from Chicago, I think it was Schaumburg to be exact, down to Nashville to open up a branch of a company called Data General. And one of his first clients was in Lynchburg, Tennessee, a storage institution that provides the most tastiest of brown beverages called Jack Daniels. And so my father thought, that'd be a great name to name my son. And so he mentioned that to my mom. She's like, I don't want my son named after a whiskey. And so they compromised. Instead of being called Jack Daniel Richardson, I'm John Daniel Richardson.
Well, that's a pretty good compromise.
Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm.
That makes me happy. So your dad worked for Data General. What did he do?
Computer guy.
Yeah.
So computers used to be the size of a refrigerator.
Yep.
And then they had it's like I don't know if it's like a tape, but they had cards and all that stuff. This is, again, back in the 70s. It's amazing how far we've come with computers. And my dad actually, later after stopping his employment with Data General, went to work with the Tennessee Army National Guard. And so automating the state of Tennessee, all of the armories across the state, his job was to make sure they had computers that were networked. And I remember as a kid, this is many years ago. This is before the internet was cool.
Yeah.
I think it was before Al Gore invented
Right.
the...
Right. When it was just a military application.
That's right.
Yeah.
So my dad, I remember going into the general's big conference room, and they had the whole, what we now have on our phones.
Sure.
Don't think twice about. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s. So
That's awesome. Okay. And what did your mom do?
preschool teacher. And she, sweetest, lovingest person you could ever imagine. Called everybody hun.
Did she teach around town somewhere?
She did. She taught at Southminster Presbyterian Church, which is church I grew up in.
Okay.
And so she was one of the teachers, then later became one of the administrators for the school.
Okay.
And did that for many, many years.
Cool. Very cool. Are you the oldest?
I am. So I have a younger brother,
Yep.
Michael. His name is Michael Vincent Richardson. My father's name is John Vincent Richardson. So I got my dad's first name. My brother got his middle name.
That's cool.
And so it's kind of cool.
Yeah. How much younger is he than you?
2.5 years younger.
Okay. What part of town did they live in?
So we lived in the southeast part of Nashville, known as Antioch. I'd walk to school, to Cole School, and with my grandmother, who was a big part of my life growing up. So it was my dad, my mom, and my mom's mom, Irene was her name.
Okay.
And she helped raise my brother and I, and from everything you could ever imagine, from being that positive role model for us, she was there for us. So it was great.
Did she move down when your folks moved down, or join you guys later, or was she already here?
She moved down later.
Okay.
I think it was,
Yeah. So you went to preschool, I assume, with your mom, and then elementary school, and what was that like? Anything special or unique?
I've always, school's come relatively easy for me because I apply myself and work hard. My brother's quote unquote gifted. He was in all those classes. I missed it by a point.
Yeah.
And so literally one of those moments in your life where you're like, you just fell short.
Yeah.
And you're like, I got to prove something to yourself. So I applied myself in pretty much a lot of things that I do. And so I went off to Magnet Middle School, and then Hume Fogg Academic
Nice.
High School. So
Yeah.
8 years in the nerd track here.
Yeah.
Metro Nashville's finest when it comes to public education.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. What was school like? I mean, obviously you're in magnet schools, so I assume it was tougher than.
Oh yeah, it's very rigorous,
Yeah.
but it was great. It was it definitely prepared me for college. I did not initially get directly. I went to Megs, had a great time, made a lot of friends. I wrestled, which was a big part of my life growing up as far as a kid. In middle school, I got very active in the Boy Scouts, which I'll be happy to tell you about in a bit if you like.
Absolutely.
That's a big part of my life. But in middle school, it was just great friends. Everybody wanted to be there.
That's true. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's not a zone school. You have to have certain scores, and you got to have a positive attitude and work hard. And but staying in it, getting in is one thing, but maintaining and graduating in 4 years was something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did go to Antioch High School for 4 days.
Okay.
So I was number 55 on the waiting list to Hume Fogg. And so I went to Antioch High School. And then when my number came up, they're like, okay, it's time to go to Hume Fogg. And I did not want to go, which is weird because I loved my experience. But, and I was in high school, had my first girlfriend. I was going to be in the marching band. All these things. It's like all the friends I knew from elementary school came back. It was kind of like, oh, hey, John, we remember you. And
All that in 4 days.
yeah, pretty much. I move fast.
You are an overachiever.
Yeah. Well, life's too short to be dull and boring. And so I just go all in pretty much everything I do. So,
And you've always been that way.
pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's funny how there's moments where things have happened along the way that just kind of remind me of, okay, this is my calling. This is my purpose. This is why I'm here. But yeah, in high school, I'm a nice guy. I mean, I know I'm a nice guy, but there's been moments, like especially in high school.
Yeah.
Remember, I didn't want to be there. I was number 55 on the waiting list. Number came up, went to school, and I literally did my darndest my first year to get kicked out of Hume Fogg.
Really?
Yeah, you wouldn't think that.
Well, why wouldn't you? I mean, could you not just say, hey, I changed my mind. I don't want to go?
it wasn't my choice. I guess it was my
Oh, okay.
my folks were, but they knew me and they knew Hume Fogg. There's nothing wrong with Antioch.
No, right.
I'm saying they knew my work ethic. They knew my drive, and they just said stick it out. And of course, I would quick funny story. I ran for the SGA, which is student government at Hume Fogg, got elected, and then did my darndest to try to get kicked out of the SGA by being a jackwagon in class. And I did. Eventually, I got kicked out of the SGA, and then came back and ran my sophomore year and got reelected. So it's like I got elected, get kicked out, got reelected, and then elected junior and senior. So I was.
Why? Why did you want to get kicked out?
That's a great question. I think kids, when they're middle school, high school age, you're going through a lot of changes, and your brain is still forming, and you make choices that perhaps you look back and think, why was I an idiot? But in hindsight, funny quick story, I look back, and I think of one of those moments I regret in my life, and it was a teacher I had back in high school, Gene Cunningham. He was my freshman English teacher.
Putting him on blast right now.
Oh, well, here's the deal. I actually years later ran into him, which is it's hilarious. But when I was in his class, I would take my desk that was in front of me. There's I'm seated in a desk. You know those desks where it's the seat and the desk combined combo?
Yeah.
And I would lean, it's like an empty desk, and then there's a student in front of me, and I would lean it forward. So the front of the desk in front of me was on the back of the seat of the student and 2 seats in front.
Right.
And it was angled so that all the student had to do is slightly shift in their desk, and then the desk would then fall flat. The front of the desk in between would hit the ground, create tremendous cacophony, and I would do rolling a pencil up and down the desk, anything to be a distraction. And so I get kicked out because at Hume Fogg we had a little gym and we had intramurals. And so while folks were having lunch, because our English class was at lunchtime. So I was just an idiot, and it's just whatever it took to get kicked out of class. But my favorite prank by far was, and I don't think it initially was my idea, but I totally, perhaps I wasn't the instigator, but I didn't dissuade it from occurring. You can take the face off an air conditioning unit, and you can load it up with all kinds of stuff. So fresh sardines, and you open it and you slide it in there, you close it up, and you act like nothing's happening. And then a day or two later, you start to smell something weird, and you're like, and everybody's like, "What is that smell?" And you play dumb, and it's the best. So that was my. But I've since I've gotten older, I don't play as many practical jokes.
You've put those ways behind you now?
Well, up into through college. Then in college, a lot of jokes. But that's that's another story.
But now you're an adult.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you mentioned Boy Scouts.
Oh yeah.
Tell me how. Well, I know your Boy Scout story to some extent, but tell me about wrestling first.
Sure. So, wrestling started back in middle school. I had a coach, Ralph Gabriel. Man, what an amazing guy. He was our introductory to physical science teacher at Meg's. But he was also the wrestling coach, and wrestling was easy, and I was smart, and I was strong enough to win. So I did well, wrestled 7th and 8th grade, got to high school and realized, it's a wholly different.
Once everybody's had puberty, it's
it's like all of a sudden everybody's got muscles. Our first 2 years, we didn't have a team at Hume Fogg. But then when we had our team at junior year, I was first on the team, signed me up. And of course, senior year became captain. And of course, did not get kicked off the wrestling team. That's a good thing. But nonetheless, wrestling was great. You compete as an individual.
Right.
You start every match with a handshake. You look their opponent in the eye, you shake their hand, and then you go. And then win or lose, at the end, you shake hands, then your hand is raised. And it's over. But the highlight, I would say, or the low light, or however you want to describe it, January 21st of 1996. So this was literally less than 2 weeks from my 18th birthday.
Okay.
So I was a senior in high school. Wrestling a guy from, I forget what the name of the school it was. But anyway, this guy was a beast. I mean, he had muscles on muscles. I had no business wrestling him. Same weight class, 135, 142, wherever I was at that time. And he was destroying me, but I would not quit. I don't know if you've seen the video of the honey badger
Oh, yeah.
Honey Badger doesn't quit.
Yes, yeah.
That was me. And I'm just going to, even if I'm getting whooped, I'm not going to quit.
Sure.
So this guy has got me up by many points. And in wrestling, there's a thing called a crab ride where when on the mat, imagine a guy on all fours, and you throw your legs in, your feet inside their legs, and their arms my arms are hooked under his arms. So you're kind of like a backpack on the ground.
Yeah.
You visualize that?
Yep.
Okay. Well, the guy stood up with me on his back like a backpack without any feet or hands or my hands on the mat, which is in wrestling, it's called potentially dangerous, and you stop the match because obviously something bad can happen.
Yeah.
Well, something bad happened, actually. The guy went to a forward roll. I slid off his back, much like a heavy backpack, and all the weight going forward. Top of my head hit the mat. My face came into my chest. And like that, like a bag of Doritos crunching all at the same time, basically I broke my neck.
Wow.
C5, laid there. The official saw what happened, instantly blocked my head to make sure that I was immobilized. And I've shared this story a bunch, so it's kind of, the emotions have passed, but just to go back to that moment, it's amazing how that should have been it. Because when I got to the hospital, the doctor's like, dude, you should be dead.
Wow.
Or you should be paralyzed from the neck down. But as you can see, I have full use of my faculties, and it's crazy. So I did have to wear a neck brace for 6 months. Every nickname you can imagine.
Say it's a good thing you were at nerd school.
Yeah, right. Well, you still get picked on. So I was like Inspector Gadget, Lego neck, whatever. I had this neck brace. But I from that experience, and the pain was horrible.
Yeah.
And
did the pain hit immediately?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I started going numb on my toes when I got to the hospital. And they set me up, and it started working up my legs, and they're like, okay, we're going to lay you down flat. It was a stress fracture. So had it completely snapped, what's funny is I think it was 5 or 6 months earlier, Christopher Reeve, Superman, broke his C1 in that horse equestrian accident. So when that happened to me, just a few months later, everybody's like, oh my gosh, like Superman, you broke your neck, except the story didn't turn out well for him. And it's a miracle that I'm able to do what I can do. So
that's awesome. Did you have to do PT and therapy to start walking again, or how'd that happen?
No.
Once they got everything figured out and braced you up, you were fine?
They braced me up. I did not have to do the screws to the forehead. I'm sure you've seen people with the halos.
Oh yeah.
Wasn't that bad, thank goodness. I don't recall physical therapy. I remember going to see the doctor. I remember my neck being so ginger. The fact that I can drive a car and look to the left and right was amazing, because for the longest time, when you're sleeping, eating, showering, everything with a neck brace on, so it's kind of but that was I graduated. I took it off, so my graduation pictures, because this was in January and graduation was in June, so I was still in my neck brace.
Wow.
Graduated from the Ryman Auditorium in downtown Nashville.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Well, then we have to talk about Scouts.
Oh, yeah.
How'd that happen?
So, like I mentioned, grew up a kid at Southminster Presbyterian Church, and there was Scoutmaster there named Ernie Hansel. His son, Joseph, looked up to him. He had like 3 or 4 year jump on me, I guess 3 years or so. And I wanted to join the local troop at my church. But what's funny, growing up in Antioch, we didn't come from means. And so a lot of my clothing was experienced clothing. Came from consignment shops. There was a consignment shop called Kids Kisses, which was down in the Antioch. If you guys know where Antioch Pike is, that area. So
Kids Kisses.
I think that was the name of it.
That's the worst name.
It is. Yeah,
that's awful.
In hindsight, I don't know what they were thinking, but it was a consignment store, and they had a Cub Scout neckerchief. It was yellow.
Okay.
And when I saw that, it had the neckerchief slide and all that good stuff, and I proudly wore it. And I think I was probably all 4 years old at the time, little guy.
Oh, wow.
And I told my mom, I want to be a Boy Scout when I grow up. And so I wore that, all the time. And just like a kid that wears a Superman cape when they're a kid, or little girls, they wear the princess. For me, it was my neckerchief.
That's bizarre. So was your dad a scout?
So my dad was a scout. He made it to Life Scout, did not get his Eagle.
But were you, other than just seeing this kid at church, What was your exposure to Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts?
I did Cub Scouts at Cole School.
No, I know, but what inspired 4-year-old John to want that so bad?
No idea. Just saw it and I was like, that looks cool. And it just looked like a really cool, as you can tell, I enjoy rocking the bow ties. So fancy neck attire is kind of my thing. And so I maybe as a kid, I thought, oh, that looks kind of cool. I like to wear that.
That's bizarre. Okay. So you started in, and you said, in elementary school, you started in, was it first grade, second grade?
So I started as a bear. So I missed my wolf year.
Okay.
I got started late, I guess a year late, but whatever age that is. So I did bear, and then I did Weeblos for 2 years, and then went right into scouting, and I got my Arrow of Light, all that good stuff. And then, scouting was not easy. There's some kids who are the natural athlete, and they're the coolest kid. You know, I was everybody's friend.
Yeah.
I got along with everybody.
Yeah.
But I took my fair share of bullying, just like, all kids do. But there was a part of me who's like, I'm not quitting. I don't care how hard it gets. I don't know how many times gum gets put in my hair.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I don't care what it takes. You know, you have tear-filled moments, but you're like, I really want to be an Eagle Scout.
But people did that to you in Boy Scouts?
Oh, yeah. Well, you didn't. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyway, how big was your troop?
We would have about 15 or 20 scouts. So we've always been a small troop.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you still serve the same troop, right?
So, yes.
Fast forward
quite a bit. In 2011, after I did like a whole season of a totally different life, and then I found myself having some free time, ran into a guy who was a scoutmaster at the same Boy Scout troop that I was involved in as a youth. He's wearing his Class A uniform. He's at a Toastmasters public speaking event. And I looked at him and was like, Troop 249, that's my troop. And he said, no, that's my troop. I'm the Scoutmaster. And I'm like, well, I'm an Eagle Scout. And he's like, well, you should have lunch sometime, which is code for, congratulations, John, you're about to become an assistant Scoutmaster.
That's how that works.
That's how that works. And so we met and connected, and not to get ahead of myself, but at that time I was like, look, I need another activity, like I need another hole in the head. But then he literally sat there and without giving too much details, just kind of briefly told us stories about each of the scouts. And that's when I knew, I was like, okay, I get it, God. In this season of my life, I'm supposed to be here working with these guys, encouraging them. Most of the scouts that I work with, all but 3 of the families, all single moms, working 2 or 3 jobs, doing the best they can. And we meet them where they are and encourage these guys, these young men, to make wise choices so they end up being the future leaders that they're called to be.
That's cool. So tell me about the dynamic with your brother. Did you guys get along?
So as the kids, no. We're always fighting, man. And what's funny is I mentioned my grandmother. She was Italian, by the way.
Yeah.
She had a way of disciplining us. But whenever my brother Michael and I would fight, she would grab hold of us and grab a hold of hair. So she'd have a head of my hair and a head of my brother's hair, and she would just pull us apart. And that is the quickest way to break up a fight. You know, just kind of like, and then, or if you wanted to you want to fight or whatever, it's like, okay, take it outside. But if it's on a day where it's cold outside, you're like, I don't want to fight. Then you figure out a way to make it work. But
that's crazy.
Yeah, true story.
She would
pull hair. Yeah, it's still to this day. You know, it's kind of when a person goes for the hair pull, I'm like, okay, got it.
We're done. We're done.
Tap out quick.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Did you didn't wrestle on your brother, did you?
I tried.
Teach him some moves?
Well, so what's funny is here's the deal. When you learn before you learn how to wrestle in school, you take what you've done for many, many years pummeling your brother, and you try to transfer that to the mat in a collegiate or high school, and it doesn't work.
Right.
And you get smoked. And you're like, okay, this isn't how it works. Then you learn moves, then you bring them back, and then you go, okay, put my brother in his place. But what's funny is we fought like crazy as kids, but now I love him.
Yeah.
And I think the world of him, we're different.
Yeah.
We are totally different, and I respect him. And he is, our paths in our lives have taken 2 different directions.
Sure.
And yet we're both solid individuals in our own way.
Yeah.
And I tell him all the time, like, look, I'm just going to love you where you are and encourage you like crazy. And I know we're different. And, I have conversations about topics that he's like, I have zero interest in that, and vice versa. But the universality that we both share is our love for tabletop strategy board games.
Yet another reason I love you. Why are we doing this? Let's go play a game.
Well, that's later. Kelly finally let me, my wife, Kelly, I'll tell you her story in a second.
Yeah.
But she allowed me to take I have about 35 to 40 tabletop strategy board games, and they lived in the trunk of my car
Yes.
for many years.
Yes.
And then until Kelly realized that, wait a second, some idiot rear ends your car, and hundreds of dollars are up in smoke because I wouldn't allow you to put your games on our shelves in our living room so that when people come over, they can play, because that's what you do. But it looks kind of, when you walk in the front door and you see the spread of games, you're like, oh, okay.
Well, that's what you see at my house, too. You come in the front door and you look straight up the stairwell, and there's a wall of games up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's like, I don't have any tattoos, but board games are kind of like tattoos. Once you get one, you're like, oh, dude, I got to... Or it's like chocolate chip cookies. Once you buy it, you can't just have one. Or chips.
That's true.
They're addictive.
Okay, so you got through high school.
Got through high school.
Neck brace came off.
Neck brace came off.
You went to UT, I believe.
I did. Go Vols. Yes, sir.
Your exuberance.
Oh, them. Yeah. What's great was, again, started in the fall of 96.
Okay.
UT won our national championship in 1998. So
okay.
I was there in the heydays. I got to personally meet Peyton Manning when he was there. I got to meet T. Martin, who brought UT their national championship in 98. Coincidentally, he was dating a lady who I went to high school with, Jolita. And so that was kind of neat. So the whole connection. But yeah, UT was awesome. Hume Fog was so rigorous and hard that I think I sleepwalked through my first year at UT, with the exception of English class. For some reason, that was a... I've always struggled with, picking on English teachers for some weird reason. In hindsight, I just not realized that. But yeah, it was...
That's funny.
Yeah. I do remember another quick funny story. Again, I'm a good guy.
Yeah.
And I feel like at the heart of things, people get to know me. They're like, okay, yeah, John's a good guy. But there's a devious side. There's a part that wants to just... how can I mess with this situation?
Mm-hmm.
And that contrarian spirit, which I think I get from my brother Michael, who
you don't get that from your brother.
Well, he just kind of rubbed off on me.
Okay.
The people you associate with, the kind of way of rubbing off on you, and that's just his nature. So that spirit, and it just kind of the way of, he shared that spirit with me. But funny, quick story. This is the one where I look back and thought, again, I didn't have to do that. It's pretty stupid. It's another regret. I was over in English class. I was second. It was my freshman year, second semester, whatever. I was done. I was like, I don't want to take this class anymore.
Sure.
You can't fail it. It's you either get a grade or you can just keep retaking the class until you pass.
Yeah.
So I decided one day to get to class an hour early. I'm not making this up. It's pretty dumb. But I loved practical jokes. That was my jam. But this was one of the highlights of because I guess it was a thrill to get in the, what's it called? The crime log at the University of Tennessee, where you do something stupid, like you put soap in the fountains and they bubble up, and then you read the day later, some jackwagon put soap in the and you're like that. You cut it out and you're like, that's me, and you kind of keep a running score of all the practical jokes you can do.
Oh sure, yeah, I did that too. No, I did not do that. Okay, continue.
So I decided I'm going to get to class an hour early. I'm done with this class. What would happen if you remove? This is my brain, right? I wonder what would happen if I removed all of the articles from that classroom, everything, and put it into the classroom next door. So I literally, every desk, trash can, everything. Yeah, right? It's dumb. And then, but to take it to the next level, I wrote, Mr. Smith's English 102 class has been moved to HSS, and then the number, HSS is the humanities class at UT. And so I then moved everything out, and I'm like, I'm out, and I walked to HSS, and there's places where you can write on the chalkboard on the side, and then you would say, so-and-so, Mr. Smith's HSS class has been moved to this room. So basically, on April Fool's Day, I took my English class on a wild goose chase, and then at the fourth room on the board, I wrote big old April Fool's Day, and it was epic.
That's amazing.
Yep. Well, funny thing.
Did you get caught?
So I did, not by the teacher, but by the. When I was in college, I had the best summer job. I'll be happy to tell you about it. And so one of the ladies who I had my summer internship with, she ran into me, and I was like, well, hey, Connie, what's up? And I told her about my story, about what I was doing. And she's like, John, that's crazy. And so later on that day, I thought, you know what? I'm going to take this joke to the next level.
Oh, no.
So I called her up, and I was like, hey, Connie, I need you to do me a solid. And she's like, what's up, John? So remember that wild goose chase? She's like, yeah, in the classroom and this and that. She's like, yeah. I was like, well, so I'm sitting here at the University of Tennessee's police department, and they picked me up. And so I need you to come and bail me out. And she's like, haha, April Fool's. Like, no, I'm serious. And I fictitiously just started describing the room. I was like, oh, yeah, so this wall's concrete, and they got this. I'm just making it up on the spot.
Oh, my gosh.
So she goes down to the police station to bail me out, quote unquote. Well, she gets there, and she's like, haha, John, you're real funny. Oh, by the way, I shared with them what you did. And they want to have a conversation with you.
Yes.
And then at that point, I was like, oh, crap, this just got real.
Yep.
But then I called her back, and she's like, April Fool's.
Ah, good.
She got me good. So
That's fantastic.
true story.
You earned it, though.
Oh, yeah.
She should have ratted you out.
Yeah.
The only downside is that you didn't get to see the professor's face.
Yeah. That's, you can't, and you can never, and you never brag about it. You just kind of let those,
Right.
And then those urban legends kind of build, and you're
Yep.
like, I have no clue what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we know.
Tell me more.
Yeah, exactly.
So what did you study when you were in college?
So I got a degree in political science, minor in Spanish, and professionally these days I'm a financial guy. But if you had asked me back in college, I'd be in D.C. right now,
Yeah.
or I'd be on Capitol Hill in Nashville, working with a member of the Tennessee General Assembly, or doing something politically involved. Because I remember as a kid going to political rallies and just cheering for these candidates, and they were larger than life, and it was I don't know. I've always felt called to be in that area. So
That's so bizarre. So as a kid, you were into politics.
oh yeah, I wore my neckerchief, and I was all about. I mean, literally, I remember watching debates. I remember. I think to be honest, I think where it came from, in looking back, my father mentioned. I mentioned he was a part of the Army National Guard.
Yeah.
Here in Tennessee. One of his good friends was a guy by the name of Bob Clement. Bob Clement was a U.S. congressman, represented Nashville for many years, and he was a colonel in the Army National Guard. And you'll find out as you do life with me that I really don't care so much about your party ID as I care about you as a person.
Right.
And if you're a jerk or a jackwagon, I'll give you space. But if you're like, look, I don't care we may not agree on a lot of issues, but at the end of the day, your party, my opinion is that your party or your political philosophy, if you're a friend of that person and you never knew their political views and you'd still be a friend with them, you should continue to be a friend with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
So yeah, it was Bob Clement, I think, who got me hooked at a young age, because he was really cool with my dad, and I got to see him, and then he would, he'd be on TV, and I'm like, hey, I know that guy. He's works with my dad.
That's cool. That's crazy. So you were going to be in politics, and what was the goal? Did you want to be elected and be in Congress, or be a senator, or be a president, or did you want to work behind the scenes?
Behind the scenes. Later on, when I was in college, that's when I got bit by the bug. I thought maybe one of these days, in God's timing, it'll be time for me to run for office. But for now, it's priorities. First things first. I've helped a lot of people run for office.
Yeah.
I've won some, lost some races, and at the end of the day, it's there's nothing worse than you find a person who's an amazing person and could do so much good, but they let their selfish ambition and their personal drive get in the way. They run for office to be somebody, not to do something. One of my campaigns I'm proudest of working with is a guy actually here in Nashville, is Charlie Tigert. He's a Metro councilman. His wife, Judy, who's they've retired now, but she was an enrolled agent. Learned a lot about politics from her, the candidate's wife. And she sat me down one day. She's like, John, there's two types of people. Those folks who got to run for office to get something in front of or behind their name to get their self-worth. Or there's folks who are like, look, I'm doing this because I feel called to do it.
Yeah.
I want to make a difference, get in, get the job done, and move on. It's just a season of my life. And so I have to look in the mirror and ask myself, John, are you running for office to be somebody or to get a job done and then to move on? And until I can honestly answer that question, I'm here serving, doing other stuff. But at some point, maybe in God's planning, in the future. But for now, it's behind the scenes, helping folks, good quality people run for office, as well as helping. I work with the volunteer at the Davidson County Election Commission. So every time there's an election, I check your driver's license, making sure that you are who you say you are, and help you with the voting process.
That's you.
That's me. It's me and a bunch of retirees.
Yeah.
I am the outlier.
So do you honestly think, because I know you pretty well, would you really draw that much of your self-worth from being elected?
I think there's a lot of people who run for office.
I'm not talking about other people. I'm talking about you.
At this point, I feel called to continue to serve people who are closest to me, like my wife, Kelly.
Yeah.
And she is an amazing gift from God. Amazing. And so I don't want to mess that up.
Yeah.
And I'll be happy. I've been down this road before, and I was married once before, and that's a story in itself too. But having such a blessing in my life and being able to do life with an amazing woman, I don't want to mess that up. Yeah. So, intentionally, whenever I do something like, hey, honey, I'm going to go do this or do that, we sit down, we talk about it. She looks at me and says, that's your decision. And I pray about it and keep asking myself, do I have the bandwidth or the time to commit to whatever it is? And if the answer is yes, then we move forward as a couple.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So you graduated UT in 2000?
No. It was December of 2001.
Okay.
So, yeah, I took a lap.
December?
December. I took a lap year. To be honest, I didn't want to graduate. I was having the time of my life. And while at UT, I majored in extracurricular activities with a minor in academics.
No, you didn't.
Oh, yeah. So,
extracurricular, that's a minor?
Oh, no, it's a joke.
Okay. Oh, God. Okay. Look, the way things are, it's hard to tell what really is and isn't something you can study in school anymore.
Oh, that's true. You can kind of create your own major.
Yeah.
Well, if I could create my own major, it would have been being involved in fraternity, Greek life, being involved in the Student Government Association, being a resident assistant, being involved with the United Residence Council, which is all things SGA with the dorms.
Oh my gosh!
And so, dance marathon, did that all 5 years.
Dance marathon.
It's an exhibition, not a competition, as we would say. No wagering, no side wagering.
Oh my gosh! So wait, okay. So you were Greek. What was your fraternity? Phi
Kappa Tau.
Okay.
Paul Newman, out of I think he was from Ohio. He was one of our famous alums.
Okay.
And so that was a great experience.
So you graduated from UT Knoxville.
I did.
And then you decided to go into what? What happened then?
Well, what's funny is
you didn't go to D.C.
Didn't go to D.C. And the reason why was this. Something changed in my life when I look back. So I was at UT. I had a great time. But there was something missing. And so when I was in college, a guy by the name of Tom Tyson, he worked for a company called Thomas Nelson Bibles. Mm-hmm. Approached me. He's like, hey, how would you...
I forgot all about this. Yes, keep going.
This is a big part of my story. Again, it's just, I look back and thinking, man, was I crazy or what? But anyway, he approached me. He's like, hey, how would you like to do this summer internship with the varsity internship program? And like,
quote unquote.
Yeah. And I was like, what's it about? It's like, oh, well, we sit down with families from all over the Southeast and we market educational books and Bibles. In my mind, I heard, this sounds cool. It sounds like I could be a business owner, an entrepreneur opportunity. Okay, cool. I'll sign up. Learn the sales talks, learn the presentations, all that kind of stuff. Got to make all kinds of friends. All these people I was rubbing elbows with were all sharp, kind of like in the TV show Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Kind of people.
Yeah.
And they get it. They're mentally with it. I'm like, okay, I'm hanging with a bunch of leaders. I like that.
Yeah.
I was horrible. So long story short, I sold books and Bibles door to door.
Yes.
For 5 summers. My first summer.
5 summers?
5.
You didn't figure it out?
No.
Oh.
So your first summer, it's like you're driving at night with the headlights off. You don't know what you're doing. You're running into stuff. I don't know how many. I mean, I think my big check at the end of the summer after my first summer was like $50. Now I made about 4,000 or 5,000.
Wow.
But I spent every bit of it because you're out there for 3 months on your own, paying your own rent, paying for your own food, growing up. So that was a good learning experience. I think I made 115, something like that. Wasn't much.
Yeah.
But I grew up a lot, and I realized I am not the salesman I thought I was. But the biggest part of that experience in that freshman year,
Yeah.
a buddy named Cy, back in because again, I'm at UT, kind of went to church, dabbled with church, but it really wasn't a big part of my life. So in sales school, here I am, about to go sell books and Bibles door to door, and I did not know the Lord.
Really?
Yeah.
But you were raised in church.
Raised in church, but it's kind of like one of those, I could sing the songs, but there's like a head knowledge,
Yeah.
and then there's like a heart knowledge.
Yeah.
So here I was, and my buddy Cy, because I had asked a question, and it flipped a switch. A red flag popped up in his head. And one of the sales talks, it's their children's Bible. It asked the question, how many of each type of animal did Noah take on the ark? And the answer is a pair, right? Well, he actually took 7 pairs of unclean animals because they had to eat something because there wasn't McDonald's.
Sure.
And I didn't know that because I didn't learn about that back when I was a kid. What else is there? What other part of the story, as Paul Harvey would say, what's the rest of the story?
Right.
And so I dug and started asking questions. And Cy asked me, he was like, have you ever personally accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior? And I'm like, what you talking about, Willis?
Yeah.
And so in the middle of sales school, I about woke up half the hotel, prayed the sinner's prayer. And I was like, and then literally I was so pumped. And at that point, I'm like, I was on fire. I was like, I want to learn, because in my mind, I thought my mission, whenever I was with the family, they would say, we don't want to buy anything. I'm like, okay, so tell me about where you go to church. Because in my mind at that time, I was trying to find the right church.
Yeah.
Because that's what I thought it was about. Come to find out, it's not. It's a relationship. God loves me. He's crazy about me. He wants to know me. It's not about a certain denomination. And as I go through life, I love loving people where they are and not getting caught up in, well, I belong to this church or that church. There's so much that you can learn from people that don't have the same views as you.
Absolutely.
So so there you go. So long story short, did that for 5 summers. Every summer got progressively better.
Yeah.
By my 5th summer, I actually made some decent money. But more importantly, I started to figure out how to become a business owner. Mm-hmm. I'm still working on that. But more importantly, I learned how to listen and how to connect with people. So I would sit down with a family and I would do the sales process. But I'm seeing what's going on in their world. I'm looking around and looking at their kids and thinking, okay, your kids are brilliant. What are you teaching them? Your wife is smoking hot. How did you get a wife like that? and I would ask these people, and they're like, are you crazy? He's like, no, I wanted to know. So it's like I would interview people and get to know their stories.
Yeah.
And so on our pre-approach pad, which is how we kept track of who we would call on the back of the pad, I would keep track of all the notes, why people would marry different people, what kind of books they would read. I learned about a guy named Dr. James Dobson. Never heard of him. He's like, how to raise a strong-willed child. I'm like, I don't have any kids. Yeah, I'm learning all about potentially one of these days, maybe Lord willing, I'll have a family, and I'll know how to deal with a kid who's got a strong personality.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was my summer job, and Glenn Ransom was my sales manager, and from him I learned so much about life. Later on, he was instrumental in walking with me in a season when my whole world fell apart. But that was many years later.
So when you graduated from UT,
I was done.
You were done.
Yep. Came to Nashville to live and work. Sold long-term care insurance for John Hancock. Here I was, 24, 25 years of age, talking to people in their 60s and 70s about nursing home care.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be in sales. I did that in college.
Yeah.
I wanted to teach.
Okay.
And so after about 9 months of doing that, Smiling Diamond, I was hammering the phones, 200-300 cold calls a day.
Oh.
But after about 9 months of pounding my head against the wall, realizing that's not fun, I became a full-time substitute school teacher with Metro Schools.
That's a bit of a left turn.
Yeah, totally, because I wanted to teach. And I did that, and I loved it. And I have a high respect for teachers, because I know how much crap I put them through when I was in high school. And
Sure.
And then a friend of mine said, John, why don't you put your resume out there? So I did. Next thing you know, I get hired by this company called the Lampo Group, Dave Ramsey.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of them, Tyler?
I have heard of them. It's funny you should ask, John.
Yeah. So I worked for Dave for 2 years.
Yep.
Part of his live events team. First year, on the phone, smiling, dialing, talking to pastors and churches all over the U.S., get them excited about simulcast, which is Dave on stage. They're in their church and so forth. Watching Dave via satellite.
Right.
And then the second year, this was a cool deal. I got to fly out to different cities and host pastor luncheon. So I was like a traveling cheerleader with a guy named Ken Monday. It was a Ken and John show, and we'd get in there and we're like traveling cheerleaders.
Yeah.
And I got to be, it was like it's like the musical, The Greatest Show. I get to put on the show.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. There's nothing more entertaining than or fun spending quality time with about 30 or so pastors at an Italian restaurant in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, or about 300 pastors down in, I think it was Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And they're there and they're listening. They're like, they came to listen to me? How cool is that? And I'm like 28. What do I know?
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of
So
cool.
what moved you on from there?
So I love Dave, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. I look back at those years. That was a formative years of my life. My political needle moved from the left, hard left, to the middle, to slightly right-leaning because of my time with Dave. I was the token Democrat, rocking the bow ties.
Yes, you were.
Funny quick story, when I was on his team, he would ask folks to drive him places. And so he's like, hey, I need you to drive me down to Jackson, Mississippi. So I had an opportunity to drive Miss Daisy, as I called it.
Did you tell him that?
Yeah, I did. 'Cause at that point,
Yeah, you did.
I was, again, I have nothing to fear. I'm just going to love folks where they are. And they kind of, at first, they're like off-put, like, is he serious, or is that how he, like, oh, that's him, and he's being real, and this is genuine. Okay, I get him. So Dave, you do your time. He's like, okay, I want you to drive me. And so I drove his wife, Sharon's white Lexus. It was like an SUV kind of thing. It's been a while. But yeah, and so I'm driving. I'm driving. Dave's sitting there. This is before GPS was a big thing. So he's on his laptop a third of the time, reminding me how fast I'm going, because his computer can tell you how fast it's going with his built-in GPS. The other third of the time, he's...
Were you an aggressive driver?
No.
Oh, you weren't going fast enough?
No, I was going, well, at times I was going a little on the fast side.
Okay.
And he would remind me, by the way, don't forget, you could get pulled over and it's your ticket. And I was like, yes, sir. But, hands at 10 and 2 the whole time, because again, I got precious cargo on board.
Sure.
And again, he's not only my employer, but I admire the guy. And, it's one of those things I'd hate for us to be, I want to keep it rubber side down and make it to our destination safely. But third of the time, he's on his computer. Third of the time, he's resting and sleeping. The other third time, he's just talking about life. I got to pepper him with every question imaginable. And I don't think there was any question that was off limits. He was just like, bring it. And he just talked to me like a friend, like he'd known me for years.
Yeah.
I don't think he would mind if I told you the story. If I'll find out if I get a letter.
Yeah, we'll find out.
So again, third of the time, Davis is sleeping. And when you're in a car, you're truly never asleep. So I'm thinking to myself, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
John.
I like practical jokes, right?
John.
So I'm thinking, I can't pass this up.
Oh my God.
So Dave's asleep. And you can kind of tell when he's kind of coming to, but he's kind of still asleep, but his eyes are starting to open up. And I scream at the top of my lungs, whoa, I can't believe this thing does 120. And he looked at me and said, what? And then I looked at him and said, gotcha. Because remember, I was driving on the fast side, because in his mind, he kind of thought,
sure,
though I was safe.
Oh my gosh.
And so a couple weeks later, at the company, you'd always have Mondays, all the team comes together, left hand knows what the right hand's doing, they share information. Dave gets up there and he's like, let me tell you what John did. Half of the people in the room were like, you gotta be kidding me, you're some kind of idiot. The other half that knew Dave and they were tight with him were high-fiving you like, dude, welcome to the club. It's kind of cool.
Oh my gosh.
So that was my time. But after that, became a financial advisor in 2005.
Yep.
And just like anybody starting a business, you struggle. You just grind it out. My first few customers were all valet parking cars, valets in downtown Nashville. Aldi was my favorite store, so I could survive off like $100 a month. I would write my name on my bananas at the office, because nobody would take my food because, again, when you're broke, you're broke.
Yeah.
And you're grinding it out. Yeah, here I am 15 years later, still at it, and I love it. And it's about money, but it's more about doing life with people. It's like when I was in college.
Yeah.
Listening to people's stories, kind of like what we're doing here, just talking.
Yeah.
Except I don't have a cool microphone when I talk to folks, but
they're available. You can buy them. You can buy them on Amazon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's nothing fancy.
So but that's why I made the turn. I just, it was hard because I sat down in Dave's office and looked him in the eye and said, look, I can't afford to work here.
Oh.
I'm making decent money, but I needed to make more money to pay off student loan debt.
Yeah.
Because at that time I wanted to get married. And the woman who I was seeing at the time, she was like, look, if you want to get married to me, you got to be debt free. Because she had been married before. I was her second, would be potentially her second marriage. She's like, not until you're debt free. If you're not debt free, we're not getting married. So I'm, again, highly motivated honey badger. I'm like, whatever it takes. So I work for Dave by day, and at night I'm delivering pizzas.
Wow.
Or parking cars.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So and whatever it took. So eventually I became debt free.
Yep.
And switched over, became a financial advisor.
So you got married? I
got married. And what's funny is, have you seen the movie Jerry Maguire?
It's been ages, but yeah.
So in the movie Jerry Maguire dates a single mom.
Mm-hmm.
And there's rules about dating single moms. And if you don't know the rules, you should go back and watch the movie. There's do's and don'ts. And I behaved myself. And I was a gentleman. And I waited till marriage. But more importantly, because I had a wife to be who was raising an 18-month-old from her first marriage. And so I have
18-month-old?
18-month-old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when I met Stephanie, she had her daughter, Addie, who was 18 months. And so, because she got divorced not long after Addie was born. And so when I met her, she was basically guarding two hearts, hers and her daughter's.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm pretty, again, when I meet somebody, I'm all in. It's just my nature.
Yeah.
Met her at a Christian swing dance event over at Franklin Road Academy, kind of in that area.
Sure.
And I could tell she was sharp and she was business oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And so, which is attractive to me when women are just savvy in business.
Yeah.
So long story short, pursued her like crazy.
Yeah.
For about 2-3 years. It was July 4th. At Centennial Park in the band shell, or the pavilion where you can dance, the live music.
Okay.
They have big band music every Saturday from like May through August. So anyway, I was on the dance floor. I proposed to Stephanie and to Addie. I gave her a ring, and I gave Addie a little cubic zirconian toe ring that was big enough for her finger, and that began a 4-year marriage that began on November 4th, 2006, and ended on November 4th, 2010.
Oh wow!
4 years to the day.
Wow. What happened?
So, it's, I didn't understand when I would meet with people as a financial guy, and people would talk about their divorce.
Mm-hmm.
I would kind of smile and nod, or try not to smile, or be kind of like, yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
And my heart would hurt, but I just didn't get it. If you've experienced a divorce firsthand, like the loss, it's a tremendous loss. It's like the loss of a parent or grandparent.
Yeah.
Like times 5 or 10, it's huge. But it's a loss that doesn't end. It's like the loss that you keep losing over and over again.
Yeah.
Because the person's still there. And if you don't heal from it, it gets worse. So my story, I always knew I like strong-willed people. I like people that are going somewhere. And so I met Stephanie and we hit it off. But I could tell by the way we danced together that she didn't like it when I would lead, because she's used to leading, because she led in everything in her life.
Yeah.
And in dancing, you got to have a person leading and a person following, because guys put their hands certain places, or should put certain places, and women put their hands in.
Yeah.
And so I knew there was going to be a challenge, but I was up for the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, first 2 years marriage, no big deal. What's really cool is I have a tremendous amount of respect for anybody who's a business owner, and it's not easy. And Stephanie I'm sure is. I haven't seen her since the divorce, or Addie for that matter. But very successful with a great company, rock star, sales lady, leader of leaders. On the business side, A++. On the emotional side, it was not we didn't connect. We would struggle in that area. So I would change. So I'm a people pleaser. That's my nature.
Yeah.
And I changed a lot of who I wanted to be to please her. So I had idols in my life. And I would say Stephanie was an idol. Addie was an idol. Being accepted was an idol. Being cool, because remember, I grew up in a not affluent neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I remember I was a kid having pants that come January were always high water.
Yeah.
Because I got two pairs of jeans or pants or whatever in August at the beginning of the school year, and they had to last the whole year.
Oh.
So by January, if you grow and you get a growth spurt, guess what? You have high waters now. And so when people called me Michael Jackson because I was wearing, and it's like, haha, you laugh it off, but it hurts.
Yeah.
Especially when you get bullied because you're tall and lanky and goofy looking, it's not easy. So finally being in a season of my life where I'm socially acceptable, I'm dating a serious businesswoman who's doing great things and to do life. It was cool. I was in the in crowd, so to speak.
Yeah.
And on paper, we had it all. Strong 6-figure income, beautiful home, a dog. I'm not a dog person. I have a slight phobia of dogs.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I've grown over time, but I fell in love with a dog named Sebastian, golden retriever, and because it's just he became my dog, but it was her dog, and so everything on paper looked good, but so basically Mother's Day 2010, my world changed. You think you got it all together and life is going well, and so short version is this. I won't go into the great details, but so my wife and I had a altercation on Mother's Day. I did not punch back. I would not punch back. I just took it. And police show up. They separate us, interview both of us. And again, it's Mother's Day. I was going to go to church that Sunday. It's picture day. It's family day at the church. And here it's, 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm bruised and bloodied, and my world just got rocked. And officers ask me questions and ask her questions, and I didn't realize this till years later. I had a friend who's a cop explain it to me that they were trying to figure out who the primary aggressor was.
Yeah.
And it was determined that I was not, which I know I wasn't. That's not always the case, though. Usually somebody's going to go to jail.
Yeah.
In this time, I didn't. The officer, I don't know who it was. I would shake his hand now. Looking back, I was like, you made the right call. He basically said, look, you two need to separate, and you need to go your separate way. And it's Mother's Day, and if Stephanie is the aggressor, what are you going to do? Take a wife whose daughter is on Mother's Day, you're going to give with the stepdad, and you're going to split. That doesn't work. What are you going to do? So the two of them, they went off to, I guess, her mother's house. I went to church, sat down with a friend of mine, and it was, you ever walked into a room full of people and yet you felt like you were completely alone?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was my Mother's Day of 2010. Found a good friend who I adore. His name is Terry Smith, his wife Charlotte. And it's like, look, y'all, I need to talk. 911, this is a big deal, kind of a moment. And they loved me unconditionally right there. And over the next, from that day in May up through November, walked through a very challenging, dark season of my life. Because I kept racking my brain thinking, what did I do?
Yeah.
Where did I go wrong? When I said I do, I meant it forever.
Right.
And here I am. I'm finding myself on the losing end of a situation, an unmerited divorce But I did something. What I learned from that experience was this. There's certain things you can't control. No matter how much I wanted to control or to control the situation, I couldn't. I tried to control my life. At that time, I didn't understand or appreciate what God's sovereignty is in my life.
Yeah.
Because I tried to control everything and tried to make sure everything was way I thought the perfect at this age, or at that time I would have everything together. I did something which was it's counterintuitive, but I surrendered, and I was like, I'm out, tapped out. I'm like, done. God, it's yours.
Yeah.
I have done a great job of jacking up my life, trying to control. I don't have it all figured out. And God and I, we talk on a regular basis. I was like, God, this divorce, my relationship with Stephanie, I turn it over to you. Whatever's between you and her, that's in your hands. And whatever I need to work on, I need to own.
Yeah.
And so there began, actually, while I was going through the divorce, I got involved with divorce care. Mm-hmm. And I did that. It's 3 months. It's very good. It's like the AA 12-steppers for divorced people.
Okay, cool.
So good. Well, I'm pretty dense. So I did it 3 times in a row over 9 months.
Sean, my gosh.
Well, I really wanted to know. I wanted to know what the heck what went wrong, and because I was beating myself up, if you can imagine, emotionally, thinking I did something to deserve this.
Yeah.
Because it was all about control.
Yeah.
Went through an amazing experience called Focus seminars out of Kansas City that rocked my world in a good way.
Yeah, Wayne and Pam need to be on the show.
Oh my gosh. I love them.
Just for what it's worth.
They're amazing. Oh my gosh. In that season of my life, literally my divorce, Thursday was my divorce mediation. On that Friday, that's right, November 5th, I was at the very next day in Focus.
That's right. I mean, I knew it was close. I didn't realize it was that close.
Yeah. Raw.
Yeah.
Raw.
Yeah. It's months or years of counseling compressed down to a couple of weekends. It's intense.
It's intense. Now, it wasn't cheap, but at that season of my life, I'm like, what went wrong?
Yeah.
What do I need to do? So I'm like, after divorce care, and that was great. Made some lifelong friends through Focus. I went through a Christian ministry called Trace Diaz. Mm-hmm. It's ecumenical. Again, all the minutia that divides churches. It's like your body is one body. And there's some folks who see that the bigger picture is grace.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that until I went through my Trace Diaz weekend. And later on, when I met Kelly, and our story is amazing, and how amazing God's grace is, and how I could get a second chance with an amazing woman who could love me and truly know me and my quirkiness and my intensity and still love me. So
tell me about Kelly.
So Kelly, originally from Harrisonburg, Virginia. Harrisonburg. Her folks, Wendy and Jerry, I adored them. They're, people talk about in-laws and this and that. No, I've got the best in-laws. I mean that. So she came to Nashville to be in the music business, not to play. She worked for a company called EMI. Mm-hmm. So very involved as a financial advisor in my association. It's called NAFA, National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors. Of course, my past president. So again, didn't get kicked out of that either. So that's a good thing.
Good job. Good job.
But I'm at a golf tournament. I don't play golf. Again, I'm a nerd. I play board games. I don't play golf. That's not my jam. But I'm standing on a golf course, promoting another golf tournament, getting folks excited, and up walks this lady. She's not wearing a ring, and she's recruiting.
You noticed that fast, huh?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, you do. So she's not wearing a ring, and she's recruiting financial advisors, and I'm recruiting a wife. So we start chit-chatting. And we start talking, and I go right into, I'm an idiot. I go right into, hey, I'm John Richardson. Nice to meet you. And I start telling her about all the great things that I'm involved in, doing this and that, and just being over the top.
Yes.
And just too much. She looked at me, and she's like, wow, I've got this friend who I think you should meet, which is girl code for, I'm not
interested.
You. Yeah. So I said, okay. She's like, are you seeing anyone? I'm like, well, sort of, kind of. I mean, through, Christian mingle,
Yeah.
but nothing really serious. She's like, well, let me give you her information. So on LinkedIn, she did. Called her up, scheduled a date, met at a Mexican restaurant. Friends of mine, this is a fun part of the story. Friends of mine like, John, you're too analytical. You got lists for lists. You just need to go with your gut.
Yeah.
The next date when you go on a date, Kelly's probably gonna be mad at me on this one, but she'll get over it. But when you go on a date, don't quit judging women by their list of all their qualities. Just go with your gut. Just, from a physical attraction standpoint. So I'm like, okay, so met Kelly and we sat down and had dinner. And for the first 30 minutes of our conversation, she told me her story. And I listened and I'm into it.
Yeah.
And then it was my turn. I then proceeded for the next hour and a half to almost 2 hours to tell her my entire life story. She looked at me. I mean, everything that we're talking about here, imagine we condense it. And I'm like, blah. And she looked at me. Basically, the term she used is I word vomited all over her. She looked at me and asked me, do you do this on all your first dates? And how's that work for you? And my response was, well, yes, I do. And I guess we'll find out. Because that's how I was like, this is who I am. And so she's like, she told her friend, how was it? And he was like, he's a bit much.
Yeah.
John's kind of like orange juice. He comes in concentrate form. A little dab will do you. And I'm all in. So, but we courted. Dated with intent to marry for about 20 months. I proposed to her on December 23rd, 2014, married August 1st, 2015. And I had the ring because she had no idea it was coming. I hid the ring. Remember, I like tabletop strategy board games, right?
Yeah.
Because we're traveling together to Florida to be with her folks, my in-laws, future in-laws, and her family. So in a box, open the box. This is a Settlers of Catan box. There's a space where you can actually perfectly hide a ring, and that's exactly where it was. So that was my cover-up was my tabletop strategy board game, Settlers of Catan. I hid the ring in there, and then...
Settlers of Catan is a great way to bring people together.
It is.
Or start marriages.
So on the beach, I did the whole Toyota commercial, where you jump in the air and everybody jumps at the same time and you take a picture. You know what I'm talking about? It's kind of cheesy.
Sure.
So on the third jump, I dropped to my knee, pulled out the ring. She didn't see it coming. We had a photographer came in, swooped in, big old huge camera and taking pictures. We went right into a engagement photo session, like on the spot, family photo. And she's like losing it, and it was amazing. So Kelly had never been married.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'll be 42 this year. She waited to get married, waited for basically God's best for her.
Yeah.
And then I met her, and I just honey badgered, wore her down. And was like, I'm the real deal.
Yeah.
I know I'm quirky. I know I could be a bit much and intense, and she said yes. And again, she's an amazing gift from God. People like me, but they love Kelly.
Yeah.
She's real.
Yeah.
And she's authentic. And I've grown so much in my time knowing her. I'm excited about our future together. I'm excited to see what God's doing in our lives together. It's we're trying like crazy to have a family. It hasn't happened. That's been hard. It's in this season of my life I've got my scouts, but I can share this with you. It's hard when you want to be successful in something and then it just doesn't work out. We were successful in having kids 4 times. And the good Lord said it's taking them home. So for the longest time I didn't talk about miscarriages because it's Kelly's story. It's hard, especially when you're expecting and you make a big announcement at Thanksgiving and you give presents that resemble fruit or different things that are based on the size of the baby at the time. So we have at our home, we've got a blueberry that's a stuffed animal who it's a reminder of our first. And then, one miscarriage is a lot, but 4 over 3 years is it's a lot. Talking to my friends, they say you can, when you have a big event in your life, like a loss, miscarriages have a way, or major losses have a way of causing folks to either break up and go apart or draw them closer. And again, we serve an amazing God who's sovereign, and I believe that. I know that He's got a plan. I know that on the other side of heaven, I got a family reunion coming. But on this side, I get a chance to do life with an amazing wife and amazing friends. And just love people where they are. So, I don't have all the answers, but I definitely believe that God's got a plan. So, my job is just to trust and abide and listen and dig in and read and do life with people and watch Him show up in some pretty cool ways that I would never expect. Yeah. So, for Kelly, being involved with the college students at our church, it's great for her. For me, being involved with the middle school and high school age scouts in my troop, it's great for me. So, while biologically, I'm not a dad, I don't have any kiddos of my own, but on every Monday night, I get to hang out with, as I like to tell my friends, a bunch of hormonal, knife-wielding pyromaniacs.
Yep.
There's 15 of them or so, and I'm Mr. John, and they don't know my story.
Right.
They don't need to know their kids. But it's exciting to watch them grow up. It's exciting to watch them learn what it means to be a citizen and be civically minded and get involved in their community and to give back.
Yeah.
I used to think life was all about getting yours, and it's not. And I want to encourage these guys these scouts, it's like life is more than just yourself. To have the opportunity to love God and enjoy Him forever is awesome. And to share that love with others through meaningful conversations. And sometimes it's awkward.
Yeah.
Because life's awkward. And sometimes I'm really awkward. And that's okay. I just want to be present. I want to be genuine. I want to be in the business of having heart-level conversations, not head-level conversations. Just being present and sharing His truth with them.
What are you afraid of?
So, superficially, water. Yeah. So you will not catch me anywhere near a deep water source, lake, without a life jacket on. Yeah. I go canoeing with the scouts a lot, and I love it. Whitewater rafting, all about it, with a life jacket on. But I can't be, like, that movie, What About Bob?
Sure. Oh,
Where
yeah.
he's all, so that's me. It's bad. Slight dogs when I was a kid. I have a slight phobia of dogs.
Yeah.
He did really bad when I was a kid because I got knocked down by our pet. So I fear, so that's superficial kind of fears, but real fears, I feel like I'm called to trust, and even when I don't understand the situation, there's like the side of me is like I'm human, I'm broken, I'm gonna have fears, and I think we all have moments of anxiety, and in those moments I'm like, okay, this is stupid. I believe that God's got me.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in His sovereignty, which means that He's in control of the good and the bad,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to give it to Him and let Him lead me through the situation, and just hope on the back end everything turns out okay. But it's I don't want to fear returning a phone call. I don't want to fear taking a chance. I admire this guy. I've not met him yet. Hopefully one of these days I'll meet him. His name is Bob Goff. He wrote a book called Love Does.
Love Does, yeah.
Yeah. It's been a couple years since I've read it. But dude's wide open. He loves people where they are. And I want to live a life where I have no fears, but I'm so in the moment that when it's my turn to go home and be with the Lord, folks show up at my funeral service and they look around, there's a couple folks there, but it's the most eclectic bunch of random people on the planet. You know, there's the homeless person I befriended out in front of McDonald's and helped him get a new set of teeth. You know, it's the person I knew in politics who's all put together and, you know, like the perfect candidate next to the scout or next to my Trace Diaz brother,
Yeah.
or a person who doesn't know the Lord at all or whatever. I want it to be the most mixed up bag of friends.
I think you're going to have that. What do you regret?
There's a lot of poor choices I've made in my life. I think of my days in college. A lot of people I hurt.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't talked about it, but just I want to keep my word. I want to be a man of integrity. And there's a lot of you do one thing and you say another, and it's just that's not who I feel like God's called me to be. But when you hurt people and you let folks down in a deep way, I regret any of those folks who have hurt. But the biggest regret, I would say, and on my divorce date on that Thursday, 2010, November, went to the divorce mediator, sat down with the guy, heard our stories. He's like, yeah, you guys are done. You got a couple hours to pack up your stuff and move out. And in my mind at that time, because it was just part of my ex-wife at that time, and she's like, look, I will pay for all your legal fees. You just pack up and leave. And I was like, okay. Already at that point, I was in pretty deep in fees. And so I was like, well, that's kind of nice to help put the bill for that 1 day session, which was easy, $5,000. So I thought, I'll pack up by midnight and be out. Well, it took me a couple hours and I was out. At that time, I thought I was going to be able to say goodbye to Addie. Because I was in a hurry, packed the stuff up. Again, this is a young lady who, from 18 months to age 8, helped raise, who taught how to eat sushi, how to fly a kite. I was there all those years. And then at the end, I thought, I'll see her again. And, of course, get the letter saying, look, we don't love you. Go have a nice life. And so I regret not saying goodbye.
Who is God?
There's a lot of folks who could say that, God is the great architect of the universe. And He is. I mean, He put the stars and these planets in the sky, and He did all that. And He also created us. It blows my mind. The fact that I have a relationship with Him through His Son, Jesus Christ, and I get to walk daily with Him, and I get to surrender all in these tough moments in my life and say, He got me. So He's a loving Father who's crazy about me. I'm crazy about Him. He's a good father. He's a just father. He's also very merciful too. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's a tough act to follow, but I guess it's my turn now. So, first things first, yes, John, the groundhog did see its shadow on your birthday. I looked it up. John and I have known each other for 17 years, and our lives have kind of dodged and weaved in and out of each other's. Hopefully, at this point, they've done enough dodging and weaving, and we're just stuck to each other. That's what I did. I hired him as my financial advisor so that he'd have to hang out with me. We play board games all the time. I see him just about weekly at this point, and I'm pretty pleased with that. If you didn't fall in love with John in that interview, I got nothing to tell you. I got nothing for you. I got nothing for you. He is one of my favorite humans on the face of the planet. I trust this man implicitly. Guys, if you need financial advice, if you are looking for a financial planner or a financial advisor, and listen, you don't have to have billions of dollars to invest. If you need somebody to take a look at your finances with you, you will not find a better person than Mr. John Richardson. You can connect with him as well as Kane Myers and Jeb and Judd, the 4 primary members of Bound Brook Advisors. You can connect with them at boundbrookadvisors.com. I cannot encourage it enough. I have sent my own family to see them, and if that's not enough for you, my wife and I trust them with our planning and retirement. Go check them out. One other side thing. I have to apologize. I took a cheap shot in that intro. I said John had great taste in bourbon and terrible taste in scotch. That's not strictly true. He actually has pretty good taste in scotch. It's just one scotch in particular that he didn't like, that I love. And so, I mean, that's how you do that, right? You find one place where your tastes vary, and then you declare the other person completely incompetent in their knowledge base. I shouldn't complain. He gave me the bottle of scotch, so I take it back. John, you have excellent taste in scotch and better taste in gifts. If you'd like to see the portrait I made of John, you can do so on the show's website. That is butenoughAbout.me. Again, that's butenoughAbout.me. That is our website. You can connect with us there. You can look at the portraits, listen to past episodes, find other podcasting apps where you can listen to the show. It's a great place to contact me through. If you'd like to contact me, you can do it through there, down toward the bottom, or just tyler@butenoughAbout.me. Additionally, down at the bottom of that website, you will find 2 folks who have been instrumental in making this whole thing happen. Those being Mr. Casey Jones, who helps me out with my graphic design needs and problems. The man is fantastic. You should check out his work. You can check it out down there. There's a link to his website down at the bottom of my page. Additionally, there's Mr. Jace Hackman. Jace is a guitarist and a singer-songwriter. He's incredible, and I am forever grateful that he has offered the music that I've used for this first season. It's a big deal when an artist allows themselves to be associated with the work of somebody else, and so I want to make sure I never take for granted what these 2 men have done for me. Thank you. Thank you. So this is the part where I'm supposed to say something deep and meaningful about what I've been doing for the last year here with this podcast. And I don't know what to say. I've been racking my brains for the last, couple months, honestly, trying to figure out how to approach this end of the first season thing. When I started this, I had a couple of clear goals. I wanted to learn how to make a podcast, just because that seemed like a good thing to learn. And I wanted to see if I could increase my capacity for compassion by spending time with other people's stories. Well, I've learned a little bit about podcasting. I may not be an expert, but I've got some basic understandings. And as far as compassion is concerned, I'd like to think I'm less of a jerk. I'm not sure. I'll have to have somebody else be the judge of that. Beyond that, as I got into it, I made it a goal to do this for a year, a solid year, no breaks, no days off. When you have a hobby that is not producing an income while you are simultaneously self-employed and supporting a family of 6, spending as much time as this requires and committing to a year of it, it's a big deal. On top of that, I'm not a natural finisher. I start things all the time. I don't often finish things. So I guess a secondary goal here was trying to become better at seeing things through. I made it to my goal. I made it a full year of consistent bi-weekly releases. There are 26 episodes, 26 stories of different people that I have listened to literally dozens of times. And I am so honored and thankful for all of you guys that have listened and downloaded this podcast. Before this episode, right now, I guess I'm technically 2 weeks shy of when I would have released the first one, right? Because it's 26 weeks, so the next one, 2 weeks from now, would be the actual 1 year anniversary. In its first year of existence, you guys have already downloaded over 6,000 listens to this show. Why? Who am I? I don't spend money on marketing. I don't have famous people on my podcast. There's no reason that you guys should have found this, but you have, and you've kept listening. I'm beyond amazed by that. I'm so honored that something I have done has resonated with you guys on any level. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, let's talk about the future for just a second. I am going to put out more episodes. I'm calling this season 1 just because I wanted to take a break, and that's when you take a break, right? At the end of the season. In the next couple weeks, I'm going to not do anything podcast related. And then, hopefully once the coronavirus is completely blown over and everybody's a little more comfortable with being in each other's houses again, I'm going to start scheduling interviews, and I'll start recording more stories, and I'll start working on them. And when I feel like I've got a good handle, a good lead on a bunch of episodes all stacked up, I will come back, and you'll get season 2. And I cannot wait. Guys, the folks I've already talked to that I know are willing to share their stories with me, that I'm just waiting for the chance to get them, you're going to love them. You're going to love them. Also, it would be foolish of me, a major failing, if I did not acknowledge the 3 people whose interviews I recorded but then never published for one reason or another. And there were legitimate reasons for each of them. But Cece, Court, Benton, thank you so much for the time and energy and faith that you put in me and shared your stories with me. Okay, I think that's it. Be good to each other. We can see each other face to face again, just not in big crowds, and that's okay. Stories are better told when they're in small groups. Go find someone. Buy them a cup of coffee or a glass of whiskey and ask them to tell you their story. My name is Tyler Andrews, but enough about me.